Hi, Clutter Fairy fans. This is the Clutter Fairy Weekly for May 24th, 2022. I'm your co-host, Ed Gumnick, and I'm speaking with Gayle Goddard, certified professional organizer and owner of the Clutter Fairy in Houston, Texas.
Hi, everybody. The Clutter Fairy Weekly is the webcast and podcast that digs deep into the clutter that piles up between you and the life you want to be living. We explore the habits and behaviors that lead to clutter, and we suggest strategies to slow the accumulation, reduce the collection, and comfortably manage the stuff we decide to keep.
If you're new to Zoom or to our Zoom meeting, we want to let you know that you can share your comments and questions via the chat feature, and I'll try to make sure Gail addresses them before we move on to another topic. You can also use the raise hand feature to let us know if you'd like to make a question, ask a question or make a comment yourself via audio or video. We're also streaming the webcast live on Facebook, so you can share your questions and comments there, and I'll relay them to Gail. We're going to start, as usual, by talking about last week's weekly tittle, which was called Make the Time. The assignment was to evaluate your recurring commitment of time towards either routine decluttering maintenance or your longer-term organizing projects. We'd love to hear from our participants in Zoom and Facebook who booked a new or updated appointment with yourself for organizing this week. Please let us know in the comments. YouTube viewer CM shared this comment with us. I just decluttered printed family photos for the first time ever in my life. 40 years worth of thousands of photos to give to family members. I digitally scanned these photos, but could not bring myself to throw the original printed copies away. I vastly underestimated the amount of time this project took. The scanning, sorting, and getting them to the right person took months and messed up my whole house. And I was surprised at how many boxes of old photos I had stashed away in closets all over the house. It was very emotionally exhausting to look at all those photos. I am so glad the younger generation only has digital photos and they will never have to go through this work. And I love the bound printed books they can order of the very best of their digital photos.
Thanks to Christine for sharing her experience about this. The heart of the response here is what she said about, I vastly underestimated the amount of time this project took. It always seems like the family photos should be a really quick and easy thing, but every photo is an emotional, it elicits some emotional response. Oh, look, here's that person. Oh, that person's gone now. Oh, that person's not in my life anymore. Oh, that trip was so much fun. It's a constant trigger. Every piece of paper is trigger a more emotional response. And so it is very emotionally exhausting to look at them all and process them all. And I love the idea that she kept finding her stashes, like she's been hiding photos from herself out of the way all this time, and went back for 40 to pull the 40 years of stash out and started managing them. That must have been a really horrendous project. And I'm proud of you for doing it. Yay. We're going to cheer for you for doing that. And photos are just hours and hours and hours of work. So that's definitely one of those projects where I tell people there is absolutely no way to sit down and do it all in one sitting or one weekend. And you really do have to just go, I'm going to work on photos until I get to the end, and I'm going to do it in 1 hour increments or 2 hour increments 3 times a week until I get to the end, because that's the only way that you can hang in long enough to get through thousands of photos from all of your closets. And good for you that you accomplished it. I'm sorry that it was a shock how much it was going to take to do it, but there you go. It's the nature of dealing with photographs.
Kara said, I have a Tuesday morning putter with papers standing appointment, but I've been standing it up.
Uh-oh.
I went back to it today. I set the time timer app. Thanks for that.
Oh,
for
good.
25 minutes today, and got through a lot of mail that piled up when I was out of town.
See, it is, 25 minutes in mail is not, it accomplishes a lot more than you think. And you don't have to stand there and just keep flogging yourself until you get to the end, which is, 12 hours later, you're still looking at paper. You can just put in your 25 minutes today and then move on and do it again the next day. That's awesome. I'm so proud of you. Good job.
Samudra said on the subject of the photos, it also just takes forever to scan. That is so true.
It is.
E-
It's
even
very long.
and as the equipment has gotten better, our expectations keep pace. And so it always still takes longer than we want it to take, even though it's gotten better.
We always want it to be instantaneous. We always want it to go zip and be done. And it hasn't gotten there yet, right?
It has, but you have to spend several $1,000s for that scanner. So yeah.
Not good for a home project. And once you scan it, then you have to, and then it becomes a digital file that you have to manage, and you have to name it so that you can find it, and you have to file it somewhere where you can retrieve it. And it still is a filing project. It doesn't change the nature of needing to identify the photo and put it somewhere where you can retrieve it later. It just makes that an electronic project instead of a paper or physical project. And, that still all takes time.
Rowan said, I made an appointment to do my friend's stuff. Does that count? Absolutely.
100%. I'm sure your friend loves it. And how awesome.
And Dawn said, on Saturday, I was going to have company and was just going to keep my office door closed. I decided to pick things up, and now I'm enjoying the peace it brings to have it cleaner.
There you go. See, and you didn't have to do your whole office, but you picked it up so that it looks better. And you are illustrating our point today about it gives you peace of mind to have it in a state that isn't triggering or irritating. So good for you. You made it happen for yourself by picking it up enough that you feel better about it.
Marshmallow reports, I found Bigfoot in my photos. This may be tongue in cheek.
Right? That's awesome.
Linda said, I take 30 minutes each evening to do a small sorting project.
That's good. And that's certainly bite size. And, you can hang in for 30 minutes and not be irritated anymore. I mean, or only be irritated for 30 minutes, and then you have time to recover before you go to bed. Good job.
Marcia said, I spent an hour in the closet and can now see the floor and move around while Gail was keeping me company on videos.
Oh, that's awesome. See, clearing the floor makes a huge difference. You don't realize how irritating it is when you can't walk around because something's on the floor. And that improving that piece of it is a big boost to how you see everything. Good job.
Emily Sue said, I did the counterintuitive thing to productivity. I rested last night to regain my strength for today. Knowing my limitations is productive.
It is very productive, because once you've reached your limitation, there's no amount of flogging or yelling or striving that's going to make you get anything done in any reasonable amount of time. So that is a great example of self-care and making it work for where you're coming from. And that's good example for the group. Thank you. You did a good job.
Let's move on to our main topic. Actually, something someone said kind of reminded me of my own peace of mind story I wanted to share. Our topic is, there are many ways in which clutter keeps us from living the lives we want, and an effective way to assess the present state of our homes is through the lens of peace of mind. Is there stuff in your space that stands in the way of your feeling rested, relaxed, and serene? Today, Gail will offer suggestions for clearing the worst trouble spots, opening constructive conversations with people who share your space, and moving toward a more peaceful environment. And what I wanted to, the anecdote I wanted to share about that is, we have some friends that we socialize with frequently at their place. And it's very, very, very cluttered. And recently they planned a little social event where some people from outside the usual circle were going to be there.
And strangers.
They put like 5 or 6 hours into getting the house in better shape. And I went over there and I had so much more fun than I ever have there, because they had gotten it to where, you could
dial it back.
You could set something down on the kitchen counter and not feel like you were adding to the mess. And it was really wonderful. And the lesson to me was, wow, even someone else's clutter clutter in someone else's house causes me anxiety and like a little panic.
A little stress, right?
Yeah. And so I think it's an important topic we're talking about today, because we kind of put that on the people we share our spaces with, and we need to recognize that. So
right.
go ahead, Gail.
And it's nice that it's nice that you're considered family so that they don't have to clean up for you. but how great that somebody new came in that wasn't family, that prompted the getting the new stranger treatment to the house. And it might be worth remarking to them that it relieved some of your stress.
I acknowledged how much work they've done as tactfully as I could. And,
yeah, I mean, that is a danger zone about it.
Because it's kind of like when you tell somebody, oh, you've lost weight. And it's like,
you look so much better.
It's like, oh, great. Thanks for telling me how fat I was before.
Right.
But, you don't want to say your place looks so great, because usually it doesn't.
Yeah. Which is the implication. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. But it's great of you to notice that, because I think we move in and out of spaces regularly, and we just sort of get used to the noise level, the mental noise level of the stuff. And it was cool that you had the experience where they changed the noise level and you were able to notice, oh, I feel so much better here. Okay. So given that concept that he's just described, ask yourself this question. When you're at home in your own space, do you feel peace of mind? Do you feel rested and rejuvenated? Is being in your space an experience of feeling serene? Do you feel calm and relaxed? If the answer is yes, then what are you doing here today? You've got it all figured out. But if the answer is no, then we have something to talk about today. Starting with the premise that most of you decided to say no, you don't feel peaceful at home, then let me ask some more questions. What parts of the clutter are driving you crazy, or worse, driving your partner crazy? What makes you mad as soon as you see it? What makes you want to immediately start yelling at your partner? Never a good one, but it's true, right? All of you that are living with partners of some kind, if you're cohabitating with anybody, there's always some place that makes you in your head immediately want to start yelling at them that it's their fault that this is a mess. What areas make you want to stick your fingers in your ear and hyperventilate and go la 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 when you can't take it anymore, when you feel completely overwhelmed? What areas make you want to cry? These are all different ways of asking, what about your house is making you crazy, cranky, anxious, angry, or sad? The answers to those questions are our topic today. And let me start with a story. My client zero couple live in a lot of stuff. This is their permanent state, and it's my job, and has been my job for the last 15 years, to help them shovel it out. And I just sort of take in my, snow shovel. I shovel things out, and then it fills back up, and I shovel things out. And this is my part in their life and supporting their life and how they live. But there's two of them in that house, not just one person. And they each have a different threshold. And we originally started working together because the house had gotten to a point where the husband was noticing there's too many boxes. The trails here are too narrow. I don't have any place to cook in the kitchen. He was noticing things that were making it hard for him to be there. And he was getting angry enough that she was afraid that the chaos in the house was going to cause a divorce. And so she hadn't reached her threshold. She was not noticing the chaos. It was not bothering her at all, but it was totally bothering him. And I will say that his level of chaos before he gets upset is way higher than mine. Like, they live in a level of stuff that I couldn't live in on a day-to-day basis. It would be way too stressful for me. But there's a point at which he tips over, and he always reaches his threshold before her. So the trigger for her was not, I care about the chaos in the house. The trigger for her was, I don't want to get a divorce over this. So my point is this: we all find different things nerve-wracking. We think it all bugs us, and on some level it all does, but there's always a few things that are at the top of the list. If we just address those, we can feel so much better. We don't have to wait until the house is perfect to feel peaceful in our own homes. We can help ourselves out if we just concentrate on the one thing or the two things that make it so aggravating. And if you have that conversation with your partner, you can live in an improved state of harmony together without having to keep the whole house perfect. And this has certainly been true for my client zero couple. I help them dial it back to a point so that he doesn't reach his threshold of distress. And we address the kitchen because he wants to be able to cook. And we are constantly resetting and making the kitchen so that it functions well. We concentrate on the things that make both of them happy and comfortable. And the house never reaches a place where I consider it to be complete or done, but that doesn't matter to them. They can live in harmony because we've addressed the parts that make them upset. The reason that certain things wig us out are really inexplicable and irrational. It doesn't matter if you understand why it makes your skin crawl or makes you mad or makes your partner blow a gasket. It just matters that you figure them out, what they are, and you address them. So to figure this out, you have to have a conversation with either yourself or with your spouse. A conversation with yourself is fairly easy, as long as you notice your emotional responses. You can take your own temperature by walking slowly around the house and looking carefully at everything. Notice when you scowl or you have a thought about what you're seeing that's distressed or negative. Take some notes as you walk. Think of it as a survey of your home's projects. What you're really waiting for is the biggest responses, the projects that make you react strongly. When you think, oh my God, that makes me crazy, you found the right one or two to work on. The conversation with your spouse is a bit more complicated, but still doable. Take the same survey of your home, but do it together and take notes about each of your strong responses. There's no judgment about either person's pet projects. You need to remember it doesn't matter why you're made twitchy by something. Also, no eye rolling and no dismissive comments. No blaming the problem on each other during this walkthrough either. That just stokes the fire of argument and resentment. You're aiming for harmony here, remember? So that means that both of you must suspend the old tapes about why these things happened and whose fault it is and why it can't be fixed. Everyone gets support for their honest responses about the projects that make them insane. I did a virtual consult with a couple recently, and they were negotiating about things in the kitchen, which things they were going to keep as they're anticipating a move. And one of the couples said something to the effect of, you don't really want to keep that, do you? And it was a very obvious judgment on their part that it shouldn't be kept, and eye rolling about why the other person was being attached to it. And I had to pause and say, okay, well, you've made your opinion about this thing very clear. And perhaps you want to ask the question in a less judgmental way than what just happened in front of me right now.
Yeah, or just be more honest and say, I would be happier if this thing didn't go with us.
Yes.
Because there's no judgment in that
Yes.
that this is how it makes me feel.
This is what I would like to do.
Yeah.
What would you like to do? And that, and that's a beginning of negotiation, right? It's not the final edict. Maybe you want it to go, and maybe that doesn't work as a couple because the other person really uses it, wants it, needs it. It's it's part of a conversation. They were able to, pick between the 5 cookie sheets and pick between the 4 bundt pans, and they went back and forth about which one was better to keep and which one got used more and all that kind of stuff. And ultimately, they surprised each other about which ones they cared about and which ones were more important, and made some choices, and some things went into the donate bin. And that was all that mattered. It really didn't matter which ones went. just that something went. And so they made it work. You just need to know which projects getting completed will bring the most relief to both of you. It may be that you agree on some, and you may find that each of you has totally different things that make you nuts. If that's true, then you can work on projects that improve both of your experiences. If your partner is really giving you a lot of grief, pick a project at the top of their list, even if it doesn't bother you, and bring you some relief. At the very least, it might get them to dial down the criticism and the crankiness. If one thing fixed on their list lessens their barking, try another one on their list. See how much calm you get back for the effort. And once their mood is improved, you can tackle one of your own list too. And with my client Zero couple, the thing that bothered him the most when we first started was the fact that the boxes were really like, they get lots of things delivered to the house, and there was a lot of boxes stocked up, and they were really tall, first of all. So they were like approaching head level, and the pathways between them were narrow. And that in particular bothered him a lot. And so it was very easy to go in, break down a bunch of boxes, and go through the pathway and select things along the pathway to remove them and widen that pathway. And the reduction of the boxes to below his head level and making the path wider was an immediate relief for him. It really dialed down the barking for him and the mental noise of the clutter. And that was our very first project. That was the first thing that we tried to do. And it made a huge difference. And it also sold him on the idea of, we don't have to fix the whole house. We can fix some small things and make a big improvement for how you live in the space. And I'm still working with them 15 years later. So it must work. It must work for them. It won't get your whole house done if you're just doing a few projects for you and a few projects for your spouse, but it will improve the harmony in the house. Being at peace in your home can only make it easier to move forward on the rest of the house's projects. Here's another client tale about finding the one project that would improve the mood at home. My client's husband was yelling at the client all the time, and the sentences were very global. This house is a wreck. I can't stand it. Why can't you keep it clean? There was nothing narrow or pointed about that. I'm sure it sounds very familiar to you. The couple clearly was not living in harmony, as I'm sure you can imagine, but I was able to quiz him about it. And it wasn't the whole house that set him off. He just used whole house dialogue when he was triggered. It was when the dining room table got covered up with stuff and he couldn't sit down to eat in a clear space. He wanted to be able to take his dinner plate and go sit at the table and not have it sitting on top of or surrounded by a bunch of stuff. That's an easy enough fix, and it's easy to maintain too. If all he wants is to be able to sit in the chair and have a hunk of table that's clear that he can eat on, you can accomplish that. And that means that every meal that he sits down to, he's not immediately triggered and angry, and super easy to fix. It could just as easily have been the kitchen sink full of dishes. I've had clients tell me they feel really bad about themselves when the sink is full of dishes. For others, it's the pile of mail on the counter or the backed up laundry. So think about it. What is the threshold that makes you feel over the line or your partner feel over the line? If you can decide what those are and address it, you can be much more peaceful at home. So I want to hear stories about what is in your way at home, what's making your peace of mind evaporate.
Connie said, before the pandemic, my DH used to joke or be sarcastic and turn to me and say, time we should invite people over.
Because he knew that you would clean it up for a stranger.
Right.
Right. Some people like throw parties, they plan a party, and so then it makes them clean because then the people are coming for the party. Yeah, my ultimate visual for that is imagine your mother-in-law coming. What would you do if your mother-in-law was coming over? And most people really get twitchy about that. Somehow mother-in-laws are like the worst ultimate critic, right?
Ginger shared on peace of mind, I have that written vision for our home. She shared that with us before.
Oh, right.
There are places in our home where I feel a cognitive dissonance with our vision. I have a list of them. 1, bins of my parents' papers in my bedroom. 2,
Mhm.
my craft supply closet. 3, flat surfaces in the living room downstairs, my husband's mess. 4, he would say the kitchen table, my mess. It's where I work and play. I do clear it regularly.
That's good. That's helpful.
5, spice cabinet and the overflow onto the kitchen counter. My husband buys too many.
Honey.
6, laundry closet. And 7, my studio off the garage. I think she meant to say it's become a storage space. I hope I'm interpreting that right. So Ginger is already ahead of the tittle for this week.
Right? She's already got her list. That's great.
Rowan shared Gail's couple story reminds me of the questions. How often do I use it? And can something else do what this does? Where do I use it? Is the convenience / beauty of the thing really worth the space it takes up and the time it takes to clean it and around it?
Yep, exactly. And it's a good way to evaluate whether can it stay in the space, and is it worth staying in the space and being maintained and not be irritating. If you love it and you use it all the time, I'm going to guess that you're not irritated. And where couples get cross is you're using something all the time and the other person finds it irritating. So then you have to figure out how can you store it so that you can use it and the other person is not annoyed by it. And there's always some negotiation compromise there that can be accomplished. It just takes a little, discussion of placement. And sometimes you lose. Sometimes, that the need for the thing is more important than the fact that it irritates you. But if that's true, everybody gets to win a little bit. Like you can't always, like one spouse can't always win all the discussions, right? You have to everybody gets to win and lose some.
Well, sometimes one partner just kind of has to roll over. And Samudra gave us a good example of that when she said, my partner feels over the line when the litter box is dirty.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a very good one.
Yeah.
Right. Because, it makes the house smell bad. It feels like dirty and bacteria and whatever.
Wait, I don't think I read that right. She said, my partner feels over the line when her litter box is dirty.
Oh, there you go. Hello, baby. Yes, we're getting a little cat visit. Hi, darling. Oh, what a cutie pie.
We have a similar issue. It's not litter box because our boy gets walked repeatedly, but Jaime likes to throw clean laundry over the back of the sofa while he's sorting and putting things on hangers, and that just does not work for Hardy. It's like I can't. They're like there's this whole side of the sofa I can't use because there are things hanging over the back of it, and that won't work for me. I leave the two of them to sort that out. I stay out of that fight.
Yeah, I always remind people, I know you don't like to clean the litter box, but you have a cat and their nose is down in that smell. Like you are never as close to the litter as that poor cat is, and their nose works 1,000 times better than yours. So don't be mean to your cat. Make sure you clean it more often than you want.
Connie shared, what drives me up a wall is when I clear a surface, DH will immediately put random stuff on it.
Yeah, that's kind of a spouse thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
And a horizontal surface thing, right? So and that just means that he's looking for horizontal surfaces to put things on regularly. So you may have to have an agreement like this one needs to stay clear. And I declare this non-husband drop zone. Now you can't say that for every surface in the house because then you're basically making him not welcome in the house. You have to cede some spaces for him to use, but you can declare, okay, this is in a public area and it's not, a defensible space. Kara says, I call that defensible space. Exactly. So you can claim some of these surfaces are not okay. And you can also make rules about if I find stuff in it, then I'm allowed to pick the stuff up and go put it somewhere else. And sometimes the fact that you're touching and moving their stuff will be enough of a trigger to stop them from dropping it somewhere. And you just declare everything I find on this table is not supposed to be here. I'm going to go put it in this box over here. And you have to go find it over there instead. And it will help sort of retrain, like no stopping here. This is not a valid zone. They can be trained. Dump it on his desk. Well, yeah, but you also want to, like figure out a negotiated space about where it can go, because then he's going to show up at the desk and be mad that stuff has been dumped on it. So you don't want to fuel the fire by creating something that instantly makes them irritated. So maybe you have a box next to the desk and you go put things in the box next to the desk that he can, when he's ready, go fish out. And if something's missing, you can say, I put that in the box, and he has to go look and find it in the box instead of wherever he laid it out around the house.
Emily Sue said, because I've lived with too much clutter for many years, my threshold is low and I'm not going to be at peace until most things are gone out of my living space. I can't erase the experience I've had of years of clutter, and it's changed my tolerance.
Well, that's a good, okay. And so then your goal is probably, you're saying to me that you're achieving peace of mind is pretty far down the road, but I'm sure that with each thing that you complete, you will gain some amount of relief, even if it's not your ultimate peaceful state. You can at least enjoy the accomplishment of clearing another space out. And so just notice that everything that you fix gives you one more space back, and make sure that's like the interim. You have to do the happy dance in between, right? You can't wait until the house is 100% clear, or you don't get to do the happy dance for years. So you want to make sure that you give yourself the pat on the back when you accomplish an area, and pause and enjoy the clear space for the moment, so that you keep yourself rewarded and keep going until you reach your ultimate goal.
Darby said, on the topic of mothers-in-law, borderline hoarder, but I have to clean for my mom and sisters as if the queen was coming.
As if the queen was coming. Hey, that's pretty good motivation though, right?
Diana, who's with us on Facebook, shared, housemate is clever, hardworking, creative, designs, builds, repairs, but the jobs are done when they're tired or time runs out and the dumping ground stays. OMG, the job isn't finished until all things are put away. Grrr.
Right.
And all cluttered.
So that sounds to me like it would be a good, you don't like the leftover unclear project zone when the item is complete. It might be a negotiation to happen, not when you're standing there staring at one that's made you angry, but in that conversation of getting together and talking about what makes you crazy. And you can say, I love that you do all these projects and it makes me so happy. And it also bothers me that the leftovers of the project get stuck, get left sitting there. And so maybe you can negotiate that when he declares it complete, you're in charge of cleaning it up, and you go in and clean up as your participation. He did the repair, he fixed the thing, he did whatever, and you're in charge of cleaning it up and putting it back. Or maybe you guys do that together so that he participates and you don't feel like it's all your problem to deal with, but the fact that you do it together as an appointment actually gets it accomplished instead of just yelling at him to go clean up his mess. You can treat it as a project, the cleanup from the project as its own project, and schedule it and do it together and, help him get it done.
I was going to suggest something similar, which, I was going to say, volunteer to help him with the cleanup phase and say, why don't you let me know, as you finish with tools or equipment, tools or materials, when you're done with something, or if there's a part of the, work surface you need me to clean, let me know and I'll jump in,
Right. Or, tell me when it's done, and then I can come over and help you put everything away. Sometimes it's just somebody that needs a little support to stay focused on something. And sometimes they're tired and they don't want to clean up right at the minute that they finish the project. So maybe you need to give them a moment of reveling and having a break and have lunch or whatever, and then circle back in an hour or half an hour or the next day to clean up the detritus from the project completion.
Charity shared, my husband goes out of town for 10 days at a time. We have cleared out a drawer on the desk, and when he leaves, we've agreed he puts all the papers on the desk in the drawer. When he comes home, we pull it out. That way I have a clear desk to look at while he is away, and he has his stuff accessible when he is home. This compromise is working for us.
Hey, that's great, especially because he's gone for, a week and a half at a time. So you get sort of a continuous break of looking at it. I really like that. That's awesome.
Yeah. Instead of, 10 days of having to stare at
walking by and being mad at it, and it's not going anywhere while he's gone. Right. So yeah, there you go. Samudra has her hand up. What do you got, Samudra?
I had a friend who was having a fight with her husband about whose turn it was to take out the garbage. And I said, Varga, you don't have to do half of it. Each do 50% of everything. Divide your chores so he does the part he doesn't hate and you do the part you don't hate, and still make it 50-50. And I had a student in a class that happened to be all girls, and she was talking about her husband. When it was his turn to wash the dishes, he was fine with washing the dishes, but he wouldn't clean the counters. And I said, that's easy. He always washes the dishes. You always clean the counters. And she went, yes, that will work. And it did.
Right. And it did. That's so awesome. Exactly. Good job. Sometimes you just have to renegotiate about who's going to do what chore.
Or you need an outside perspective.
Yeah, exactly. That's awesome. I did the same thing about, I hate doing the vacuuming. Penny was the chief vacuumer in charge, and I cleaned out the litter boxes. And so we each had a chore that the other one never did, and it totally worked for us. And you can divvy it up however you want and do it in a way that, everybody's the least irritated possible. That's a totally reasonable goal. And like you said, it's like they negotiated, one is doing the cleaning and one's doing the counter, and then everybody's basically happy. That's awesome.
Kara said, right now my garage is getting in the way of my peace. Things that are overflowing bins, stuff I haven't used in years, a couple of Christmas decorations that didn't get back into their places, a bag of collected plastic containers that I'm not using.
Yeah. And garages are like, oh, it's dirty and it's hot, and the things out in the garage are usually pretty irritating. And we put the least amount of effort into making the garage look good, function well. Like, it's just so annoying in the garage. So it's also a big project. Garages are large and they usually have a lot of storage in them. And we usually have jammed a lot of things out there. And so it's not something that you can tackle in one sitting for sure. And it's totally worth it when you get out there and treat the garage like it's the living room and put a bunch of effort into making it functional, stored correctly, cleaned up. It is a big relief to make that happen. So I would go out there and start the corner. The one that I had to do that made me the most crazy was when the freeze happened in Texas and everything froze, and then the pipes burst and water poured into the garage here. The garage got wet, and it's concrete. Of course, the water rolled out, it dried up, but then it made the door going into the house sort of have spotty mildew on it from that experience of super humid dampness in there. And I had been ignoring this. The door looked like a leopard. I'd been ignoring the door. And finally one day I was just like, this is making me crazy. And I went and got a bunch of Lysol wipes, and I just wiped. And it all wiped off, and now it's clean. And now every time I look at the door, I'm like, oh, it's so lovely now. It has not stopped making me happy yet. Like, I haven't gotten so used to it that I don't notice it, because it annoyed me so badly for so long. So if you can find the thing, if you can find the thing that makes you the most crazy in the garage and start there, it will make you happy, and you will get a big boost from it, and it'll make you want to return again and again until you get all the way around. And putting the Christmas things up, that's the easy one. Like, yeah, it's irritating, but if you spend a half an hour and you box the things up and put them up where they're supposed to go, that's a big footprint. I'm betting that they take up a lot of space, and it would be a big footprint if you just deal with them how you want. You'd be done and have a big win right away. It's also something that, we're going into summer, so you're going to be taking them out and 5 or 6 months. So maybe you want to look at, is there an easier way to store some of the things that you put up or that aren't put away? Maybe they need to be hanging on the wall instead of going up into the attic or being up in the wherever up on the store, whatever's making it hard for you to put it away. Address what's making it hard for you to put it away instead and figure out an alternative there.
Linda shared, I had to get past being embarrassed by my situation and ask for help. That's when I called Gail, and it was the best thing I've done in years.
Aw.
Gail breaks down things into manageable bites. This seems like a good point for a Gail ad, so hold up the virtual sign. Well, we had a question. We had an interesting question this week.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And I think it's worth mentioning. I apologize that I can't remember the name of the person who asked, but we had someone went through our website to ask, if you make a virtual appointment with Gail, do you work with Gail or with a minion? And the answer is you work with Gail. Right now, that is the one and only
virtual service.
That is the virtual service. You get to work with Gail directly from wherever you are. So visit cfhou.com/virtual if you want more details about how that works.
Please do. And I'm happy to do it. The couple that I was talking to about their kitchen and them negotiating about what was going to go through the move, they live in California. We're having this conversation over Zoom. So they basically have been bringing me their pain points, their places where they have been not able to successfully negotiate between them alone. And I've sort of been walking them through those conversations and helping them get to the other side. It's so much fun for me. It's very rewarding. So I'm happy to have those conversations with you anytime.
Linda said, I try to follow the mantra of start where you are, use what you have, do what you can. I feel peace of mind when I know I did what I could, even if the results are not a perfectly completed project. Because
something is better than nothing.
Yes.
Everything counts in the Clutter Fairy environment, right? And it is, because the projects are so big, it is about acknowledging the incremental progress and acknowledging that you made this piece better. You took these 3 steps, you got that thing out of the house, you made that change in your kitchen that made it work better. And all of those things are worth celebrating and acknowledging so that you keep going and keep making improvements.
I think several people have chimed in about how they have, found balance with, chores specific to each member of the couple.
Yeah.
Ginger said the dishwashing story is ours too. DH is good about doing the dishes, but hates cleaning stovetop and counters. So I play cleanup batter. Jaime loves to shop, and I hate to shop except at the grocery store. It's the one kind of shopping. Well, no, and also art supplies. I can be persuaded to shop for art supplies. That's going to be my new clutter problem, I suspect. But so I think finding out those things and having honest conversations and saying, I really just hate this one thing. If you will take this off my hands, I will happily take some chore off your agenda.
And there's always a trade to be had.
Joyce said, honestly, today I'm probably at least as stressed out about some mental clutter as the physical stuff. It'll pass, but that's where I am today.
Well, and you got to make space for that too. Like sometimes you just don't have it. And so figuring out what you can do to, like the person who said earlier that instead of decluttering, she made sure that she rested well last night so that she could do something today. All of that is still part of making your project move forward, right? And so if you're having to, deal with some mental clutter, then that's okay. And you can pause and come back to it when you feel better.
I think in a related comment, Naomi said, the peace of mind actually comes from the confidence in your own agency, not necessarily the physical surroundings.
There you go. That you can manage it, that you can be in charge of it, that you can make it happen, that you can fix it.
When we say do something, just do something, that there's a little boost there of I'm taking charge of this, I'm taking responsibility for this, and
I'm able to do that.
And I'm making a step in the right direction.
Mm-hmm. and it's going to bring some results over time. Yeah. Sometimes we just have to get started, right? We talk about that here all the time. Sometimes you just have to get past being overwhelmed or panicked or not having the full plan or not knowing exactly what to do, and surrender to that and go, so what? I'm just going to do something. I don't know the answer to any of those questions. I don't know how to solve any of these problems, but I can still do something. And that little something will add up over time and increase your confidence that you can figure it out or get some help to figure it out and ultimately be able to do what you want to do in your house.
Tammy asked, what is a virtual session 0.50? And I think she's asking, do you do half-hour virtual sessions? And both our scheduling software and the practical considerations of trying to cram as much into Gail's schedule as possible prevent us from doing half hours.
No. I think she's saying, because it says virtual, it's a service, it's for 50 minutes.
Oh,
that's the 50
that's what
minutes.
The question is?
Yeah. I think that's what the question
is. Okay.
Because she says it's on your site. Yeah. When you go in and schedule, it says 50 minutes because it's building in a 10-minute.
So that,
a 50 minutes and a 10-minute transition time to go from one client to the next. Okay. Sometimes they're back to back.
Thank you for that.
Sure.
Okay. Let us talk for a second about next week.
Okay.
Sometimes we recognize the negative impacts of clutter on our lives, but we still feel powerless to manage the conflicting feelings that keep us stuck. So we give in to the panicked impulse to defer decisions for another day. Next week, we're going to return to the topic of decluttering algorithms, simple, practical rules that can help set aside some of the emotion and help us gain more clarity in our decision-making. Join us next week, May 31st at noon US Central Time for Head Over Heart 3, Algorithms to Filter Our Stuff to Fit Our Space.
That should be fun. We haven't talked about them in a while, and so we're going to provide a bunch of examples of algorithms and talk through the idea of designing one for yourself, ones that work for you and how much you want to keep.
Okay, let's talk tittle.
It's called Piece of Cake. PEACE of cake. This week's assignment is to identify a clutter issue that disrupts the household peace and make a plan to address the problem. So you can start by asking any one of the questions below that resonates with you. These are the questions I asked earlier. What specific clutter is driving you crazy, or worse, driving your partner crazy? What makes you mad as soon as you see it? What makes you want to immediately start yelling at your partner? What areas make you want to stick your fingers in your ear, hyperventilate, and yell, la, 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 la? What areas make you want to cry? These are all different ways of asking, what about your home is making you cranky, crazy, anxious, angry, or sad? If the issue involves another person, have a gentle, compassionate conversation to get their input on the problem, and schedule an appointment with yourself to take action on the trouble spot you identified, in the goal of which is to reduce something that's really annoying you and experience the peace of mind when you get it complete. So that's what we want you to try this week. Give it a shot. Let us know how it goes. We'll wait patiently for your input.
I want to share one more comment from Dee in the Sierras. Dee said, at my house, after the jobs are negotiated, we then set minimum acceptable standards. As long as MAS is met, no criticism from the other person as to how the job was done.
Oh, good filter, good protection for the person that's in action too. I like that a lot.
Yeah, that's useful. And then
good negotiation.
Yeah, that's really effective negotiation. Yeah.
Right. Because, if I address the minimal standard, then no bitching from you anymore. I think that is absolutely wonderful. So you don't get to nitpick. You don't get to say, I would have done it different or better. If I do it up to this point, then that passes muster. And if you want to come and improve it later, fine, but you don't get to bitch about it while you do it, right? You can improve it if you wish, but I like that. That is really great because that provides protection for everybody that's agreeing to do something and not do the work and then get, criticized or barked at later for the accomplishment. So good job.
In our house, the minimum acceptable standard for grocery shopping is to come home with some ice cream. If you came home with some ice cream, you successfully grocery shopped.
Well, and I'll tell you that when I talk to organizers, new organizers, people that are new into the field, and I'm talking to them about what it's like to work with a client and whether you really want to be an organizer or not. It isn't enough that you like to organize. You also have to be willing to be around people that don't like to organize, and you have to be willing to interact with those people. And so one of the things that I tell them is you will never get their house to the place that you want it to be. You never get to stick around long enough to get it up to your standard. You only get to stick around long enough to get it up to their standard. And so you have to be okay with that. You have to be okay with walking away and going, I would have done another 7 hours in that garage if they had let me. And most organizers, the amount of stuff that we want done is way higher than the average person. And so in order to be a successful organizer, you have to be okay with everybody's threshold is different, and your client base, the people on that end of the spectrum are going to have a lower threshold of this is perfect now, this is okay with me.
I can live with this.
You can live with this. Yeah. And so everybody needs to aim for it's peace of mind for you when it's okay with you, when it's not barking at you anymore. And that's the goal. So that's what we were trying to talk about today. I hope you got there. And thanks for listening. We got announcements.
We do. If you're watching this on YouTube, we would love for you to join us live. We have so much fun with live participants.
Right.
To receive notifications about upcoming events, we invite you to join the Houston Clutter Coaching Meetup group by visiting cfhou.com/meetup. You don't have to live in Houston. We have members all over the world.
We do.
You can also follow us on Facebook by visiting cfhou.com/Facebook. Or subscribe to our mailing list by visiting cfhou.com/subscribe. We love to hear from you, so please send us your questions, comments, and topic suggestions on YouTube, Facebook, the contact form at our website, or anywhere else that you find us. And you can always reach us through our website at clutterfairyhouston.com.
Thanks, everybody, for coming this week. We are happy to see you always, and we're so glad when you come back. We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.